Hey everybody, this is another installment of DIY Recording for Educators, and in this episode we are going to be talking about a concept called safety and using PowerPoint safely. Um, which, of course, I'm not worried that you're going to hurt yourselves, but safety in this context means something very specific in terms of video production and titling specifically. If you've worked in broadcast, if you've worked in film, you probably know what safety is already, but a lot of people don't. And so I'm going to be talking about what's called title safety and specifically this particular PowerPoint template, which is designed to keep you within title safety. So let's just get right to it. What is this thing we call safe area? Well, the Quantel Digital Fact Book, which is a great resource for any video and audio production, post-production terminology, I'll put a link to it in the episode notes. The Digital Fact Book defines it as the area of picture into which it is considered safe to place material, graphics, text, or action so that it will be viewable when received at home. So what this means specifically is that especially in the world of analog televisions, which are really no longer, but it still sort of holds today where not all TV sets actually display the same amount of picture, especially TV sets that are kind of more curved. If you kind of remember the old, analog TV sets, the screen always had a bit of a bulge to it, and it caused this phenomenon where a lot of your picture, if you were broadcasting on television, especially in a 4:3 aspect ratio, a lot of the edge would actually get cropped. And depending on what brand of television set you had, it could crop it more or it could crop it less. You never quite knew. So in this context, the safe area is a standardized area that the industry agreed upon where your text is considered safe from being cut off. And actually, when we're talking about safety in the film industry, there are two kinds of safety. There's action safety and there's title safety. Action safety is where it's considered safe to have action that you're sure is not going to get cut off. So if anything happens in the frame, you know that people are going to see it and it's not going to get cut off on their home television sets. And there's title safety, which is the same for titles. Generally, action safety is much wider than title safety. Traditionally, action safety was about 90% of the frame. So you would, leave 10% of the frame. You would account for that potential crop. And title safety was generally 80%. So you would go even further with your text in order to be considered safe. In the modern age of, web videos or even broadcast videos, most television sets are fairly flat. They're mostly pretty standard, and especially with web videos, you can be fairly certain that most of your stuff is not going to get cut off. So in terms of web videos, especially, 80% is a bit of overkill, I think. So in this video, even though text safety is generally considered 80%, we're going to consider 90% a pretty good amount of area to consider your text safe. So this PowerPoint in particular is designed to sort of signal to you where that 90% area box is and where you need to keep your text in order to be sure that it's not going to get cut off. And that's what this box is. This is the 90%. I mean, you can see already 80% would be a bit much, I think, and especially in terms of educational content, you want to be able to use as much of your PowerPoint space as possible. So this yellow box is 90%, and I'll show you where the cues are in this PowerPoint template that tell you where that 90% box is without you having to see it all the time. So the most obvious one is obviously, this box right here. In the template, this box is a separate graphic element. So you can see the edge of this box here and here. That's where you want to keep your text in. I have a little bit of a buffer, so I'm never in danger of having my text go beyond that 90% because the text box doesn't actually extend past that this blue box area. On the other side, the indication of where 90% safe area is the edge of this letter here. So you can see that this T butts up right against this left side. And again, this text box is designed so that the leftmost letter of your PowerPoint header is always going to be the sort of left side of this 90% box. So you can imagine, if you decided you wanted to put something here, you can easily see, oh, it probably shouldn't go way past this if I want to be sure that it's not going to get cut off at home. And then the last one is this bottom one. And this bottom area is denoted by where I have my my website. So the bottom of this white box here is going to be the bottom of my 90% area. And you can see where this, you can see that this this blue box here is actually a bit higher than where the bottom of 90% is. And that's specifically in order to leave room for subtitles. Especially with broadcast and with film, you'd probably want to keep your titles within 80% if you're dealing with subtitles. But again, for web videos, it's sort of it's not an exact science. There's no real standard. But if you consider the top of this white box to be kind of the top of where the top of the area where you should leave free for subtitles, then you're probably going to be pretty safe. And that's also the reason I have this this website over here on the right-hand side rather than in the middle, and I'll show you what the old template looked like. Because if you remember, my first two videos were actually using a slightly different template. But that template also had certain design cues that told you where that 90% box was. And I'll show you that. But so suffice to say that this is what this design template looks like, and it looks like this specifically to keep your titles safe. So this is the old template, and you can see I have my website down here, which I moved over to the side so that the subtitles wouldn't cover it. Of course, branding is important. This box being the area where I used to put my video. I've since moved it down to this corner here, but so the way that this old template used to signal safety was actually in the PowerPoint text box themselves. And I've outlined where text box 1 and text box 2 used to be in this template. The edge of this text box was obviously, your 90% safe. You'll see that I kept the website name above this this 90% box in order so that it wouldn't get cut off, because as I said, branding is important. The left side is obviously the left side of the 90% box, and this title as well. And I actually went a little further. So this this underline here, this bar, this is also an indication of where your 90% box is. So this is what it looks like, totally clear. You can see I can kind of get an idea that I don't really want to put a ton on the left here. This is the new template, and so this is just one giant text box because it's a bit easier. In all truth, I haven't really decided which template I like better, and I absolutely invite you to tell me your thoughts. One of the reasons is because I do have a lot of space left here for whatever, not necessarily text, but I could maybe put a picture up here. In general, it's going to be unused though, and it seems like a bit of a waste. But I'll tell you one justification for doing it this way. It's because in general, you don't want to overcrowd your PowerPoint presentations. And this is especially true when you're creating web content, because you don't quite know how big somebody's screen is going to be. When you're creating online courses, a lot of people who take online courses are maybe taking them during their commute or, at work on a tablet or a phone. They don't always have a big computer screen to view your content. So by keeping this text box off to the side here, not only do I leave room for my video And if I were standing, I could actually, fill this entire section and not waste as much space. And that, if you had a standing desk, that would be totally, easy to do with the setup. But my justification for leaving this text box as small as it is simply to, resist the temptation to clutter each slide with so much information that it becomes unreadable on a small screen. And also, the more information you try to put on one slide, the less dynamic your video is going to be. If you try to split it up among, slides 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll be able to advance more and there'll be a bit more movement in your video, and it won't be so much just like here's a bunch of text that you should absorb immediately. You can have a bit more of a flow, a bit more of a progression, and your video is going to be a bit more dynamic and thus more interesting. So that's all about safety. As always, if you have questions, comments, ideas, michelle.ambrews@gmail.com, or leave a comment on this video, however you prefer. I'll see you next time.